For as much as we focus on wellness and trying to be happy in our culture, most of us spend very little time thinking about what healing actually is. And that's what I want to do with you this afternoon. We tend to think of doctors or maybe therapists or other certified health professionals as people with these almost magical powers who do something to us in order to make us whole and healthy. And on a certain level, that's true. A physician can prescribe drugs like antibiotics, or they might remove a cancerous tumor. And they're certainly doing something. But if we think about it, what they're really doing is removing something, an infection or a cancerous mass of cells, for example, so that the body can be restored to its own natural state of health. And what is that state? Well, that natural state is one of health. So, healing has to do with removing barriers to health and allowing our body to return to its natural innate state, which is already one of health. I want you to really think about this for a minute because its implications are incredibly profound, and I don't think it's how most of us think about health in our culture. In other words, what this says is that your natural state is not one of disease or discomfort. Your natural state is already and always one of health, balance, wholeness, and intimate connection. But we get so caught up in our experience of pain and suffering and the habits we build around that, that we can start to think that disease, dis-ease, is our natural state. And there are certain philosophies and theologies that have grown up that even reinforce this ultimately erroneous view. Once we believe that about ourselves, then healing and health will always be elusive, and we'll wait for a magical healer to come along and just fix everything for us. But the contemplative journey and the practices that we learn on that path show us another way, another path. So let's return for a moment to healing as a process of removing barriers to health, which is what I said before. Healing is a process of removing barriers to health, so that the body can get back in touch with its innate sense of healing. So what kind of barriers might we be talking about? Physical are often the first that come to mind, yes, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual barriers. All of those are related to our health. Now, again, in predominantly Western scientific cultures where me and most of my clients hang out, we have created these strong distinctions between the physical plane on the one hand and what we might call the mental, emotional, and spiritual plane on the other. But just about every ancient culture, and certainly every contemplative tradition, sees these planes as interwoven and interdependent dimensions of one single human reality, held together by consciousness, or we might say the divine will or divine consciousness itself. Now, what's interesting is even modern science is discovering countless ways that our internal states, so your thoughts, your emotions, your behavior patterns, are directly linked to and related to and often causal of our state of physical health, including disease. Scientists and philosophers of science call this the mind-body problem. The mind-body problem. But what exactly is the problem? Viewed from a more holistic, contemplative perspective, there is no problem, or at least there's not a mind-body problem that needs to be solved in the way modern science goes about it. Rather, the real problem has to do with how we relate to ourselves. How do you relate to yourself? How do you relate to your own conscious awareness? How do you relate to consciousness itself, that we might spell with a capital I? Disease, dis-ease, a lack of feeling okay in our bodies, is ultimately a result of attachment of some kind. This is stated in every single contemplative tradition that I've studied, certainly in my primary home tradition, in the Christian mystical contemplative tradition, in the yoga tradition, in the Buddhist tradition. They're all pointing to this in somewhat different ways. So, once we see the basic predicament of the human condition and we understand the true nature of healing more clearly, now we're in a position to ask some much more interesting questions like, what am I attached to? How does my attachment cause dis-ease, discomfort, and maybe even physical forms of disease that we think of in Western medicine? And then, most importantly, what can I do about it? So let's take that first question. To what are we attached? You might start by looking at external attachments or addictions. Food, drinks, mind-altering drugs, and I would include here the legal ones like caffeine and alcohol, or the illegal ones, are probably the most obvious ones that we develop attachment to or addiction. But we also know that behaviors can become compulsive or addictive. So shopping, that constant need to get things in order to feel secure, that little dopamine rush that I admit I get every time I order something on Amazon. Compulsive exercise can become a form of attachment. Sex, or always getting caught up in unhealthy relationship patterns, can be an attachment. Or perfectionism. It's so easy for perfectionism to quickly become a form of workaholism, of just always trying to get everything right and in place. We can actually keep going down to even more internal basic things like your thoughts, your emotional patterns, the core beliefs that you have about yourself and the world. All of these can drive your need to keep looking outside of yourself for healing and wholeness. But again, we already established at the beginning, it's not outside of us. It's not something that is done to us. It is our natural state. I want to say one thing that kind of links all this together too. I have found for myself and working with clients that a core belief that drives dis-ease at all these different levels, and which is shared by pretty much everyone I've ever met, is shame. Shame is a belief that I am somehow flawed in my core. It tends to lead to beliefs like I'm not good enough, I am not enough, period, I'm not worthy of love or acceptance. Now with some mindful awareness, as you develop that skill, you can learn to follow that root attachment to shame back outward, right out through your thoughts and emotions, and then manifesting in behaviors and patterns, and eventually you will see that those begin to manifest as different forms of dis-ease. So we noted before that health is our body's natural state. This is really kind of my core point in this post. This means that the natural flow and the pull of our bodies, of nature, of human consciousness, indeed of all of creation, is already towards health, wholeness, integration, intimacy, and intimate connection. Now, what this means for your contemplative practice is that the goal isn't to do something to make yourself healthy and happy. Rather, it's to awaken to the fact that your natural state is already one of health. I'm going to say that again because it's so important and so contrary to how we think. The goal of your practice is to awaken to the fact that your natural state is already one of health, and then simply live out of that state every day. The only reason that we need contemplative practices is so that you can learn how to let go, how to surrender all the attachments that block you from living in direct and conscious awareness of your inner core of health, of wholeness, and of intimacy. Now, centering prayer and meditation is an extremely simple method of learning how to do this. It teaches you how to let go, to surrender your attachments gently and gradually. And that's part of the kind of subtle beauty of the practice. It's very gentle and it's very gradual. And some people don't even recognize the change until they're several weeks in, and all of a sudden they look back and they notice, oh, there's been a very gentle kind of dissolving of those barriers of shame and around my heart and my mind. And I'm starting to see that manifest in relationships or in the way I show up to my work. It's also facilitated by the intention that we bring to the practice. So the intention we cultivate in centering prayer and meditation is simply to say yes to the divine presence and action within. And when we do that, we're met with grace. The infinite, subtle resources that God wants to give us, is always showering us with. If we would just say yes and open our hand and say thank you, that God is always giving us those graces along the way. All we have to do is learn the practice. That just takes a couple hours, no more. Show up every day, say yes, and let God and the natural course of nature take care of the rest. That's all we need to find deep and lasting healing. Now, of course, as you probably know, that's simple, but not always super easy to do in practice. Learning what to do can be the quick and easy part, and you maybe already even know that. But getting into the habit of how to do it regularly and consistently and for the rest of your life, now that's the hard part. But why is it so hard? Well, we can actually loop right back into what we were talking about before, because there's those old attachments again. Old habits die hard. Shame can gnaw at us and convince us to just give up and quit, that it's not worth it. Or just go back to the old way because it feels so much easier to stay in those old patterns. And the reality is, it is easier in the short term. It's not easier in the long term. And that's why I've created the entire Centering for Wisdom program. It's got everything you need to get started and then develop new habits that will last you for the rest of your life to stay centered in a daily contemplative practice. All of that is contained in this 8 weeks of contemplative life transformation as I talk about it. Now, what are some of the things that are included? I can't give an exhaustive list here because we'll be here forever. But you get me as your teacher and your guide, and my training and experience and practice of over 20 years with centering, prayer, and meditation, and all the other fun stuff out there. You get the teaching and the introduction to centering, prayer, and meditation, as well as to the heart math techniques. You will receive individualized feedback in the action items that you submit each week, as well as the feedback that you get for yourself, but you also get to hear other people receiving their feedback in the weekly live coaching sessions. And because this happens, you do your asynchronous learning each week. You kind of watch a video and do your action items. And then there are live events that are part of the cohort. What you get then is a supportive community of people doing this work together and cheering for each other and hearing each other's pains and challenges, but also celebrating your joys and successes. This happens in the cohort, happens during the live sessions, and it happens in the private Facebook group that's only for people who are registered for the actual program and to which you have lifetime access to me and to everyone else who ever has or will go through this program. Plus, you get modern technologies to support your practice and provide feedback. So you'll get access to the HeartMath Inner Balance Sensor, which I'm holding here. You'll have access to use the Centering for Wisdom or Wisdom Profile Assessment, where you get to take your results before at the beginning of the program and after at the end of the program and see the progress that you've made through a scientifically validated instrument. And you get everything put together. There's more things I'm not mentioning, but it's everything you need to set you up for a lifetime of contemplative prayer and meditation, a daily centering practice, so that you can really start to let go of and heal from chronic stress that is often driven by some of those core attachments, including shame. Gradually surrender those attachments that stand between you and God, between you and your natural birthright of health. And you get individual support from me as a guide, as well as from others in a safe, supportive, loving, private community, not only for the 8 weeks of the course, but access for the rest of your life. And ultimately, here's what you get. It's a practice that shows you how to gently, I emphasize gently, how to accept your body, how to accept yourself where you are, even to accept your current state of attachments in the light of a loving, unconditionally accepting God, which allows your shame to just start to melt away, opens you up to deeper intimacy with God, intimacy with your true self, with the people that you love, and heck, maybe even the people you don't love so much you might find compassion for, as well as with the natural world and creation. So if all this sounds good to you, and you want to embrace this deeper level of healing and this new understanding, then I want to invite you to the Centering for Wisdom coaching program. You can click over right now to thomasjbushlack.com/mentor. There's a hyperlink for it in your chat box as well. It's thomasjbushlack.com/mentor. I'm starting the first cohort of this newly revised program in the first week of April. And right now, you have the chance to be a part of the very first cohort where I integrate Centering for Wisdom with the heart math techniques and technologies. Really exciting stuff. And by the way, if you're watching this video much later, we're going to be continuing to run new cohorts regularly, so don't get caught up on that start date that I just mentioned. So again, click on over to thomasjbushlack.com/mentor right now and get yourself registered. Also, if you have more questions, here's how I can help. You can send me a message directly here on Facebook and Facebook Messenger, or you can book a call, what I call a breakthrough session with me. Both of those you can do by going to that page, the mentor page, scrolling down to the bottom, and there's a booking calendar right there where you can see the times that I'm available in the next few days. And I will just call you at the time that you selected. I'll ask you a few questions to get really clear on your current challenges, where you'd like to be in the next few months. And then if I'm confident that I can help you get there, I'll discuss that with you. And if not, that's totally fine too. And again, both the Facebook Messenger app, there's a little widget on that landing page, as well as my calendar are right there at thomasjbushlack.com/mentor. So may your daily contemplative practice bring you to deeper levels of healing If you're looking to get started with this process, or you want to go deeper if you've already started, then I'd love and would be so honored to journey with you in that process. Again, click over to thomasjbushlack.com/mentor right now to get yourself registered for the next cohort. Peace, be well, and I look forward to talking with you soon.